Welcome. This is the January 29th OpenZFS production user call. We have Andrew, Dan, Greg, Steve, Stu, Gurov, and myself, Michael, and we have a number of follow-up topics. Number one, whoops, it just closed my screen on me. Dan has a blog post tracking the snapshot deletion issues that he's been following for 2 or 3 calls. We have a follow-up from Mike Gitz on that, Gertz, and let's take a look at your post. And Dan, let us know where you ended up with that,
Some background.
please.
I guess 2 or 3 weeks ago, we got on the topic of, yeah, ZFS can handle tens of thousands of snapshots or thousands or something like that. So I went in and had a look at some of my hosts, and I found one host with, let's say, 68,000 snapshots. And I didn't think anything of it. A little while later, I looked at it, and 58,000 or so of those snapshots were on a single file system. So I tried deleting a whole bunch at once using the format ZFS destroy dataset ampersand snapshot1% snapshot2. So that basically deletes a whole range of snapshots for you. And it seems to be an atomic operation. And my latest venture in this blog post confirms that. So, what I tried doing was creating 60,000 empty snapshots, with the theory being that maybe deleting empty snapshots is faster. So, I started off by creating 3,000 snapshots and deleting them. Creation took 6 minutes on spinning disks and took 40 seconds to destroy. I was impressed with that rate. So I said, okay, let's bump this up by a factor of 20. So I created 60,000 empty snapshots, which took 7 hours to create, much, much longer. Um, how long did it take to list them? About 50 seconds, which isn't too bad. So on the 23rd of last week, I started delete 60,000 snapshots in one operation. Um, and it took 4 hours and it was still running. Um, and I got disconnected from the host and I tried to SSH in. I couldn't SSH in. There was all kinds of Nagios notifications on for all of the services that host provided. Um, I connected the console. I saw lots of swap related messages. And I said, well, the console is scrolling, so I'm going to leave it. Uh, I wanted to note that the ZFS destroy command was not responding to control T. Now, the blog post mentions that, but I don't know what time I tried that. So later on, after about 12 and a half hours, the host was responding to pings, but still no SSH response. So I went out that night and checked back the next day. Um, the next day, all the existing SSH sessions were disconnected. The host was no longer responding to pings, and SSH still didn't work. All the SAMB amounts it provided had been disconnected. And I let it run another 12 or 13 hours. Um, Not surprisingly, none of the backups this host does get completed. Late that day, I noticed that the screenshot I took of the console yesterday had the same numbers for block number and size as were appearing today. So I figured it's in some kind of a loop. It's time to terminate the experiment. I power cycled the host. Everything came back fine. Everything was green on Nagios, and I still had the 60,000 snapshots. Now, for background, this is let me look up the details of the host. It's a Dell R730. It has a lot of RAM. It has 132 gig of RAM. I think. Let me check that. I'm not good at math. Yeah, 132 gig of RAM
And those
and
were empties?
2 CPUs.
And in this test, that was empty snapshots or with some,
They were all empty
okay,
snapshots.
thank you.
Sorry, 72 threads. Yeah, all empty snapshots. So 3,000 fast, 60,000, oops. So I haven't gotten around to deleting them again, but I'll just use xargs or maybe it'll be interesting to see, can I delete 3,000 of those 60,000 rather quickly? And should I delete from top down or bottom up?
Indeed. Because with the percent syntax, you can easily choose a range, be it in the
Yep.
middle, at the top of the bin.
Yep.
Interesting. Oh, keep the science coming, please.
It's something I do when things slow down a little bit.
Hmm. Now, it if swapping, it sounds like you, I'm guessing, ran out of memory and just started perhaps even killing processes. That absolutely should not happen
Not when you get
on purpose.
132 gig of RAM.
Uh,
There,
do you know what your
there
arc
is a
was set to?
sorry?
Do you know what your arc was set to? Was what percentage
Yeah,
had
there is a
already
limit on the
consumed?
arc. Let me go
Okay.
look.
Yeah, I'm curious.
It's
Nonetheless.
set to 36 gig.
Hey, well, there you go. You have a mere 100 to play with for monitoring and Samba, eh?
Hmm.
That,
Let's have a
wow.
look at what it's using right now. The system's 98% idle and it has three and a half, no, sorry, 53 gig free of RAM. It's using 35 for ARC.
So going around the horn, has anyone seen something this extreme on any OS?
I'm a firm believer in the XRs doing one at a time
Yep.
structurally standpoint.
What motivated that? A bad experience or just intuition or what?
Intuition,
So,
knowing that, you put a bulk, I would rather take a shovel full out every day than bring a dump truck in and hope everything works.
yeah,
And the
amen.
only reason I tried it is I read the man page when I went to delete the original snapshots. I said, oh, this looks interesting.
Which goes back to harassing Greg last week of you read documentation first. Why?
Why would you do that? Uh, related. Uh, Mike Gertz got back about the destroy command because a call or two back we were trying to make sense of like what does D do, and there was the deferred destroy. So let's just take a peek at what he wrote. Deferred destroy is developed about marking snapshots that has clones disappear when the last clone is destroyed. It wasn't meant to address the generic eBusy case. Da, 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 da. Here's some email with Rob at some point, which uh I can see how that would make perfect sense to the author, but a user reading a manual page might get confused, as we all kind of got confused as a group last time. Anyway, Dan, thank you for that deep
You're welcome.
science and keep the post coming. That's fascinating. And then naturally, well, if someone is truly a fan of that syntax, can you do 10 at a time, 100 at a time? Is there some, optimal, moment there? And like you said, do you want to, is it easier to kill the oldest ones or the newest ones? And the fact that you've scripted it up already means you could have a barrage of tests. And don't get me wrong, I trust you have some extra hardware to do that on so you don't pull down your NAS in the process, etc. But this also could be as simple as, wow, you found a memory leak and that should be addressed. Anything else on that topic? Go ahead.
No, nothing. All done.
Fantastic. Steve, you've had some success with channel programs?
Yes, but I do have something somewhat related to the destroy.
Please. Hey, please.
So at the summit, there was a lot of discussion about how it's difficult to understand how much your snapshots are using, and I've sort of run into this problem recently. And so I want to hold like 45 days of 15-minute snapshots, and that's going to represent some amount of cost to the organization. And I ran across Alan Jude saying, just run destroy-nve with a range. And I thought, well, okay, let me try that.
You said NVE?
-nv. So I think that's it's like no-op verbose.
Okay. Oh, yes.
And so I didn't really pick up on it at the time because I didn't hear him say to do it with a range of snapshots. But anyway, tried it with a range and it seems to work great. Now that still was going to be a problem because like the ranges would interleave with the dailies, so I couldn't really get the full calculation. But I could say, well, if I deleted this internal set of 15-minute snaps in a day, I would gain back a certain amount of space. But then I started thinking about it more, and you can actually run that same command with a whole bunch of snapshots listed.
Oh, you can
you
just
can do it
pile
with
them on?
individuals. Yep, you can comma delimit them, I think, if I read the syntax right.
Yep, something like that.
Okay.
And so that, I think, gives me the calculation that I'm after, where I could say, well...
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, or even if you wanted multiple specific ranges, you can do a range, comma, another range, if my reading of it's correct. So it's fairly versatile.
That's impressive.
That would actually be perfect for what we would need it for. Anyway, I passed it on to the guy that's doing that stuff. But certainly was a new thing to me for sure.
I'll throw some numbers in here. That's that's kind of a burden on the user to just come up with, well, here I'm just going to give you my laundry list of what I'm after, but to get a response of, well, it should free this amount is pretty impressive. And if you have any output snippets, that would be cool. Go ahead, Dan.
You can do that destroy -nv as non-root. You do not have to be root.
Oh, very nice.
So basically,
since it's a no-op.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So that I try to be very cautious. So I don't even put sudo in front of it when I'm doing that. And then when I'm ready to, I have to add the sudo and remove the n, and it's difficult to accidentally do.
Sure. Great observations. And so Steve, did that give you a number that you could take to management, for lack of a better term, and say, hey, well, we're consuming this. If we dial back our, retention, we'll get this and save this, etc.
Well, I'm trying to do less of all the detail work, and I've sort of been criticized for doing too much. So I passed it on to the team, to the DevOps team that's in charge of it. So we'll see how it works out. But I that range thing with the commas I'll have to pass that on as well, because that is actually really what he needs.
Don't get me wrong.
From a manager's KPI standpoint, that could make a really good report of somebody not accomplishing something, even though they say they're working on it. Files aren't changing; they're not being snapshotted. What are you really doing all this time?
That said, I don't know how many you're going to be able to come to shove there on a command line before you start to run into some kind of just limitation on
You have like a
the size of
top.
the command line.
Yeah.
And what if one
Your
vanishes
1K
mid-command?
command line.
I don't think it can. At that point, you're once again dealing with an atomic operation.
Including the listing, no op is atomic? Mm-hmm.
It should be.
Okay, just science to try. And this is all precisely why we've come together to discuss these topics, because without poking at it in the wild, we won't learn these things. So thank you so, so much for that. And Steve, is your channel program work related to snapshots or something else?
It is work related, which, by
related
the
to
way,
snapshots.
I keep writing down the value that I got out of going to Summit because it has been vague. So I keep having to make sure I'm speaking up. Anyway, so Jan has been like showing his channel program stuff. Mine is like way simpler. I use ZFS underneath of a legacy application in order to help that team shift off of that legacy stack. So it's a replication type deal. And it repeatedly scans for, hey, do I have a base snapshot to work from? And it sort of flip-flops snapshots through the stream of changes, so to speak. And that question of, hey, ZFS, is there a snapshot with a certain user property having a value of, say, for instance, base, was very expensive. It was fine as long as I had just a few snapshots, but once we started getting 1,000 or more, we started seeing CPU tick up. So about that time, Jan was talking about channel programs, and so it seemed like, yeah, let's run a channel program to do that scan, to say list the snapshots, iterate over the snapshots, look for that, and then return the snapshot name that we're looking for. Put that in place, and it's better than it, even when we only had 50 snapshots, it was still taking way more CPU than it does now. So pretty big win there.
Do you have syntax you can share?
I will actually post the whole thing on GitHub.
Cool.
Just
Fantastic.
because I think like easy consumable channel programs are a little bit lacking.
Oh, totally. Same with dtrace. I mean, just showing what everything's like executing is handy, or be it other trace mechanisms. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with simple.
The trick with channel programs is they're Lua programs, so they're going to be somewhat longer things, I think, than most of the one-liners we're used to.
Yes, mine was maybe 20 lines. But it wasn't super involved. I think a lot of the like cognitive burden there is just understanding the mechanics of how do I execute it, etc., and just getting things passed in. Just the real simple things were really what took me some time to just go find examples. But Jan's stuff was helpful. Went back to the videos and borrowed kind of his methods.
So if it's fresh in your head, would you be willing to grab napkin notes or post-it notes and just bang out just some, hey, this is a crash course in Lua channel programs for those who have never even heard of Lua until this day?
Yeah, I think I want to do that. I'm kind of in the middle of some urgent stuff this week, but I'm suspecting within a week or two.
Cool. Well, that is great to hear. Welcome, Eva. You can see the doc. It's the same public doc. We've run through we've done a catch up on Dan's snapshot deletion. His massive deletion paralyzed his system. That segued into a little bit about deferred destroy explanations, which got into managing snapshots with Lua, and Steve found Lua and channel programs to be useful. So yeah, Steve, share what you can when the time comes. And that's fascinating because you're solving a real world problem right there. And Dan, for what it's worth, if you find that there's some kind of optimal range deletion or otherwise, it may be that channel programs are your friend. Any questions for Steve?
Not for me, no.
Awesome. Ava, do you have any topics before I jump into one of my surprises this week? You're latest to the call, so I thought, hey, I've run by everyone else.
No updates just yet. I'm
Cool.
still working those tests in the lab. So.
Fantastic. So I had a surprise that may have been on Tuesday's call, but here's the summary. I had taken a TrueNAS system that I was, say, running Time Machine like Dan on and backing up, say, my FreeBSD development laptop. And it was my primary, and then I consolidated everything to a new layout on a new multi-drive, much larger NAS system with a pure FreeBSD pool. There's a chance it was created under TrueNAS, but that shouldn't matter. But something mattered. I realized my previous writable destination, which is now going to be a backup, was mounted, and the written property said, hey, that's been written to a whopping like 8K, etc. So I thought, oh, I'll just make that can mount no auto. I will manually unmount it, and I will roll back to be nice, safe, and clean as a destination for new data that's been changing elsewhere on what, if this makes sense, was the new destination. That's my new primary system. I found that I could not roll back and get to a written property of 0, and every attempt to replicate over failed. That shouldn't happen. I did find I could do a ZFS send with a force to force in, 2024-11 and then catch up later ones that week, month, etc. And it did successfully force it over and give me a written property of 0 for an unmounted destination snapshot. But I confess I am scratching my head as to why this rollback failed. Has anyone seen that? Talk about a little kind of shaking of my belief system there, because I consider the written property to be God's own property, and I'm like, this is not following everything I've been preaching. Anyone seen that? Can you speculate as to what on earth might have been going on? Like, there was no hold, to my knowledge. There was slightly maybe a hold. Go ahead.
Did you track the configuration changes or the commands in sequence through the ZFS log?
Ooh, I can take a look at the log. At first, I thought the fact that, and someone suggested this, maybe the fact that I did a metadata change that could have been represented here could be an issue. And then I right or wrong, worked my way back to the original config, and it still kind of was hung up on that. Someone did make a request. Actually, Daniel of Zelta fame was like, well, I really wish there was a data written and a metadata written, because maybe those would play a role.
Yeah, like a SQL query log and a binary query log type of thing. But not obviously for ZFS, but in database world. That's a pretty common pattern to diagnose stuff like this. But the only thing I've come across that's close to that is with a corruption, like a ZDB corruption. And I had to restore from the ZDB aspects from not the ZFS snapshot, but from a different backup. And there was data loss. But it was not, because it wasn't ZFS that was the problem. It was a hardware issue. So it could be that there's a hardware problem. But you said that's after a migration or before the migration?
This was when reversing the migration. I thought, oh, finally I'll get around to backing up my backups, freed up some space, and thought, this data really matters. I will ship it back to where it was. That's the most efficient thing I can do rather than start from scratch. And it just wouldn't budge until I forced it. And yeah, it caught me off guard.
What was the Z log looking like at the time? Was it on a separate device?
Oh, just some spinning disks, mirrored, super simple. Nothing exotic at all. The machine is off. I could power it up and at least look at the pool history. Does the pool history report failure or success, or simply successful operations? I'd be curious if, you know, let me see if I can power it up remotely. Sure, why not?
What kind of drives are they?
Oh, some 14 terabyte SATA WD drives. And one had just been brought back as the mirror because I had to kind of hillbilly borrow it. And I had abandoned the pool thinking, oh, I'm not worried, I'll just recreate it. But I thought, well, it's the data in the original spot. I may as well just slam it back. And I tried, but this whopping 8K was a heck of a barrier. So anyway, my problem. Go ahead.
If you go look at like a smart control output on the drives, is it 4K block size, like physical block?
That is a very good question. I am happy to power it up. Let me see if I will. It's faster to walk 10 feet. I'll be right back. Okay, that'll take a moment to boot, but yeah, I'm happy to interrogate it. And while that boots up, Greg, what have you been sharing in chat? You've got something about Jeff Geerling's portable home lads. Is that the 10-inch rack?
That's where I learned about them, watching that guy's shows. One of the YouTubers I pay attention to. But yeah, I just happen to have a Fortinet 60 firewall at home, and one of those HP 1800 switches, which are both perfect for that size rack, and a couple of those little mini Dell desktop PCs. So I was like, all that stuff could fit in one of those racks pretty neatly. And anyway, that's not ZFS stuff,
but no, but it's come up a bit. And surprisingly, if you look at the various 3D printing template sites, there are some kind of cool brackets and mounts and micro rack things. So
yeah, I'm just looking at one right now.
Fun one. Oh, good. So
yeah, it's a there seems to be a little, I guess, trending is the right word of it. Yeah. Okay. So there's lots of neat stuff coming out for them.
3D printable. Yeah, so I was finding you can do like ThinkPad nubs and feet and all those things that kind of fall off or wear out or rub off, quite literally in the case of the ThinkPad's feet.
Yeah, there's a neat one that I picked up. So the new Mac Mini, the power button is on the bottom of it to the left. Ooh, yeah. So there's this neat 3D printing project that this prints out this thing that you set underneath the button. So all you do is you push on the corner on the top of your Mac, and it powers it up and down. So it's like just a little 35-cent piece of plastic could quell everyone's anxiety over the button placement.
And people do get very clever with like rock crocs, which is the rock Dwayne whoever with a croc charm and combining those. So I guess that little Mac Mini thing could have a nifty lever or something, or
exactly
Dwayne the Rock Johnson theme, all the things. Said full history. Okay, it shows my setting of can mount, no auto. It shows my eventually the successful receives. It shows all the rollbacks, and I'll paste those in example. It's like I tried it, it acknowledged it. I tried it, it acknowledged it. They just didn't click. Let's see, come on, insertion. Oh boy. So yeah, it acknowledged my attempts. That's very friendly of it, but I kept having the written property of 8 kilobytes. And does it? And I see I tried an export of the pool, just thinking, okay, maybe something holding on to it. Who knows? Who knows? But nope, nope, nope. There's some destroys. Grep hold. I trust the history would have a hold mentioned. I see no holds in the history. And so there's a minor heads up on that. Still showed 8K written. Okay. Thank you for your patience listening to that little personal story. Heads up on that, it did not behave as I expected. Fortunately, a whopping 8K being pushed over is not going something that's going to lose me sleep, but still, that shouldn't have happened. Let's see. I like, oh, it is a 10-inch, and that's, I guess, width, and is it officially half, maybe? I simultaneously love this whole ecosystem, yet do not like the idea of people doing like M.2 to SAS controllers on their Raspberry Pi and then throwing disks on that and. It's like, oh, you're kind of crazy. And that reminds me, let me get a block size on those drives. Smart. Shut. Maybe. 80A1. Let's take a look. Less. Eva, to answer your question, that is a 512-byte logical 4K physical Western Digital Ultrastar DCHC 530. And another unrelated. Go ahead.
I was going to ask what your A shift is set to.
That's ooh.
Just wondering if there's any concerns around alignment issues on there, like because you shut it down, you do some stuff, you put it back, etc., and somewhere in there might be like a hardware just bit flip type of bit rot type of thing. That since you said it was an 8K, that was a problem, right? So
oh, interesting. Oh, that's a good eye right there. I can see the A shift set during creation time, A shift 12. Message. Yeah. Let's see. So yeah, I will definitely watch the situation, see if anything behaves strangely. Does someone within reach have a 400 gig PCI Gen 5 card? Who was that?
That'd be nice.
Tell us more. This
I have
an
a
FPGA.
Yeah, so you might recall that I'm using those liquid NVMe accelerators. So he used to work for that company, and he left, and he's working for a different hardware company now. And one of the products that he's on is developing this file system compression card that is supposed to be agnostic to the file system, of which is between it and the host. I don't know how that's possible, but he's a lot smarter than I am, so we'll see. Anyways, he said that they're going to have a version specifically for ZFS as well. So he's a big BSD guy as well. So.
Oh, cool. Well,
yeah.
Shoot them the call link. We'd love to hear more. I sure hope that compression slipped in wouldn't give us a nice flashback to hardware RAID cards that only work under that exact configuration, under that exact card, and your data is no longer yours if they've done some magic to it. in the process. Just saying.
Yeah, I'm meeting up with him this weekend, so I'm gonna. The information I know now is just over chat, and he's always leery to put something in the text. So across the table over a beer, I'm sure I'm gonna get some more
Cool.
info. Yeah.
Cool. Well, we've done some great follow-ups. Does anyone have topics they want to bring up or any 10-inch success stories? And I totally get an apartment, you might want a whole ecosystem based on 10-inch racks.
I don't think the 10-inch racks will be replacing anything at work anytime soon, but they are nifty looking.
10-inch racks? What?
Oh, did you see the this bad boy or bad person? So I suppose it's a combination of adapting small devices manually, but perhaps that bottom unit is indeed intended for the form factor.
Is that something that he printed, perhaps?
Well, Alta Power PDU, I'm guessing, looks you aren't going to be cutting that shorter.
No, I didn't see it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that fan tray looks like it's been 3D printed. The PDU underneath it, that looks manufactured to be that.
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff is on Amazon, and there's like 2 companies that make 10-inch rack stuff that is easily acquired in the USA. Just in case anybody's wondering, like those patch panel on the top is one of those that's
Nice.
more easily acquired in the US.
Very nice.
Yeah, they're really fun looking. I've been thinking about setting one up for my embedded systems, and maybe once we get the 3D printer back up and running, it's in a box right now since we moved. Maybe that'll happen. But they're really fun. Huh?
Go ahead. For a portable demo, that is a dream to have on your trade show booth.
Oh yeah, you go to a trade show with that?
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, with Wi-Fi built in there, so you got your own router if you need it.
Bingo. Some of these think centers will take PCI cards, so you've got your restrictions, but darn it, they'll do it.
Actually, it's getting to the point where if that's like an ITX type form factor, a lot of them you can fit. I mean, it would maybe like a double height one instead of, but still 10-inch. You could probably even get PCIe cards in the things.
Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, I'm assuming that PDU is all 12 volt out, right?
Or you could use something like OC link, maybe. Just put a link in there to it.
I'm looking for a seller or a brand on Amazon that had a bunch of like components specifically filling those gaps, like the Lenovo PCI brackets and stuff. So there's definitely a market there. Great stuff.
Yeah, printables.com has a bunch of 3D printing templates for 10-inch racks.
Pretty cool. I like it.
Are there any success stories on really small NASs? I went with some 5 terabyte shingled drives, and they eventually just burned up on a OS upgrade. They didn't like that, but that balance of power, noise, performance, you name it, heat are all quite fascinating. Is that printable? Let's see. That is printable. Okay, let's hop out of that and just.
I can tell you, I tend to personally just buy decommissioned server gear. I mean, it's also readily available. You can just go on eBay and get it.
Totally.
It's cheap too.
Yep.
Yeah, and there are explicit NAS cases on here and drive cages, even like a HPML 110 front mount cage, because the factory ones are ridiculously expensive, etc. So I love what people are doing. I am duly impressed.
And lint keycap.
Yeah. Need a full face OLED display for it, like for your front cover kind of thing. doubles as your monitor, KVM.
We've actually built one of those that does have that full. It's like a 6-inch screen in a desktop.
See, I had a machine that I had done where it was like a mini tower case where I just took like a 17-inch monitor and bolted the thing on the side of the case. Worked well.
Well, who here hasn't done that? If you're not hanging it off with zip ties, it really doesn't count, does it?
When I've had to replace a drive, I put it inside the chassis, just had it sitting loose there and slid the chassis back into the rack.
Well, there's hard drive mount things.
Hmm.
It seems like this individual Carol has a lot of stuff there.
Our new friend. Yeah. And it's simple, clever things like this that I'm continuously impressed by. Just someone's thinking, oh, even like mount this IKEA lamp to this 3D printer just because they're a good match. Well, bless their hearts. Oh, IKEA Kallax 10-inch rack insert. There you go. Branded Unify. Okay. Ah, I love it. I love it. I love it. Oops, sorry to jump ahead. It's QNAP, Netgear, you name it. 10-inch ITX case. Love it. Beautiful. Anyhow, we'll find a way to bring this back on topic, I swear. But for those who haven't seen this little world out there, I'm duly impressed.
I really hope that some people, it's a specialist
And
thing.
brush strips.
People that are building that are making money off it because it just seems great.
Optiplex mount. Okay, well.
Wow.
And they're sharing. That's also a really nice part. You can perhaps buy them pre-made. You can pre-printed, sorry, and share. And even just like drive storage brackets and goodies. Go ahead.
Yeah. People mentioned you can find it on eBay earlier, didn't they? It's amazing.
Mm.
Well, I was just talking about just normal server gear that's being decommissioned.
Sure. And Craigslist is your friend or your local country-specific variation, be it SSLV or whatever. A duct. Oh. Okay, well, so this is fun. Love it. To bring it back on topic, I will type hard drive in the search and see what we get. Because there are, for example, cute floppy-looking SD card kits, whatever. So let's see. And please think of other topics while I do that. Hard drive.
I have a not super
bring it on
technical, but so I've been working on the closed captioning.
Oh yes, thank you. And thank you.
So I thought that the YouTube stuff was like they do a first attempt or something, and I was like, well, this must be as good as it can get. Well, I ran some stuff through Whisper.
Whisper?
And
What is Whisper?
It's like almost perfect. Like,
oh, really?
Yes, I'm bitter that I did too much work initially. So
what does that mean?
What is Whisper? Do you have a link? Whisper.com? Like what are we talking
Whisper so the thing I'm using there you go, yeah.
It's actually we were actually testing it a few months ago, and it was about 90% accurate on taking out the audio streams out of videos and doing the closed captioning for
it. Does it know like arc max versus arc min and all those ZFS terms? Because that's
no,
kind of challenge.
It's not going to be perfect, but
it's like all AI. You can train it saying, "Hey, this is for religious things. Use Bible references, not standard languages." So
okay,
So especially if we got like a bunch of the conference stuff and fed it into it, it probably would learn all of that.
I was using pre-made stuff. I didn't actually try to train anything. I just downloaded a few of the standard models. But they
I
were
see
pretty
GitHub.
good.
Could you run it yourself? And we just load it up with, say, conference topics, maybe?
Yes, I used something called whisper.cpp and just set up a Docker with all that in it and downloaded the YouTube video, ran it through that, and it does pretty good even with some of the ZFS terms. It doesn't get everything, but it's way better than what YouTube throws at you.
Interesting. And note that YouTube doesn't even capitalize the very first letter of the first word in a video, thinking, oh, come on, that's try harder, gang. Anyway, CPP. Well, now. And so just to be clear, when you ran that, you ran it on your own environment or you just uploaded stuff to the wild? Ooh.
No, the Docker I have, I'll publish the Docker to the steps with the Docker because it grabs it off YouTube with what DLYT, I don't know what it is, some utility.
YouTube download, sure.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then run it through FFmpeg, something like that, to get to a WAV file, and then run that through the thing. And
you can actually send YouTube DL just saying give me audio only, so you don't have to go through the FFmpeg stage.
Do you know the param I should look for? Because I tried to find that.
Sure. Yeah, sorry.
And of course, if you want the WAV files that became YouTube audio, just let me know. It's like you've got kind of full circle on encoding it, which is cool.
Yeah, it's all right. I just throw the link at the Docker and let it churn. So
I mean, if we could do that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, the Whisper really didn't like doing its own extraction of audio from videos. So, but for YouTube, you can pull out the direct. I'll find the command line here in a sec.
Cool.
So it's cool that Stu was saying, yeah, that's a good tool, because I just stumbled into it. I didn't know if I was like, oh, I magically stumbled into a good tool, or just there's like 10 others that I should look at that are better. So,
well, I mean, honestly, and this is without going into salesy stuff, that is a very good open source tool. There are some services and things that I could mention, but I'm not going to, that do it much better. But again, that's what you get what you pay for.
Speaking of better, there appear to be disruptive alternatives available this week that are upsetting a great many of GPU manufacturers, etc. So check the news on that. I won't name names, but been a heck of a week for
because this is going on YouTube.
Other ideas, topics, questions. Arthur, did that ring any bells for you? Anything exciting you want to investigate deeper as a new attendee? And drop in that chat if you've got it, Stu. Thank you for that. I'm glad you've gotten your feet wet with such things.
If I don't find it here, I will add it to the.
Sure, please do. It's wide open for that purpose.
If I don't find it before the call ends.
Cool. Just call it Whisper AI. And putting on my BSD conference fundraising hat, where we're getting cameras and ATEMs and all that stuff, to aim a tool at a decade plus worth of past conference material would be delightful, because just manually, did I just advocate for AI? I see advantages into what you're doing.
Well,
I may know a guy.
You may know a guy. Okay.
That's good.
What actually caused me to look at this was There's Matt Aarons did a code walkthrough lecture, and I was wanting to skim through that, but you can't get YouTube to generate the auto one because it's too old or too long or something. So anyway, that sent me down this path anyway.
Oh, so you are turning to older content and wanting summaries.
There's really good older content that has a lot of views, you know.
That's a great point. If I can get an intro, there we go. A lot of, I'll just call it CC for like closed captioned. And as you and I learned, well, the newer love or hate YouTube, the newer interface lets one delegate strictly closed captioning and titling obligations, so one can sit and work on only that, which is great without mucking with the channel or having the risk of deleting videos or something.
Oh, when did that get added?
Oh, after the sometime before the OpenZFS event, and I had not been checking it, so that was a lovely discovery.
So yeah, that would have probably been a lot easier than me going through and making changes to a text file and sending it back to you and having you do that. Just yeah.
The journey. I had never gone that deep into closed captioning, and that was a fantastic step one. And let's keep working on step 2, 3, 4, and 5. So,
Yeah.
Steve, great find.
Last note on closed captioning edits. So my there's ways like you can work on the VTT file where it's like really chunked up and it's per timeline. You're like trying to make edits and stuff. And I did a few that way, and then I stumbled into just getting the entire blob of text, and so they're in these very large paragraphs, and that is so much easier. But now with Whisper output, it does a really good job on parsing up the sentences, put punctuation, capitalization. It's like 90% of the work is done. So
wow,
yeah, it's really good.
Sounds like what we're doing next year then.
Yeah. Amen. And again, we can dabble with the years of ZFS conference material. I mean, there are, what, 12 years of dev summits and videos, and I hadn't even thought to even check for closed captioning on the earliest ones. Thank you, Stu. Awesome. Let's see. You've got F-140. Not a truck, I take it. Copy. Boom. I'll try to copy it again. Copy. Boom. Okay. So, this was the YouTube DL just to get the...
Just to pull the audio only.
Audio only. Nice.
Cool.
Cool. Yes, indeed. Anything else? I'm happy to hang out a little bit. We are hitting just about the 1 hour mark. Not that there's any obligation either way. Okay, gang. I appreciate that. I will ask, does anyone want the honors?
Go ahead and like and subscribe.
Thank you, Andrew. Have a great one.